Ole Miss got a future star in the transfer portal. Let's talk all about it. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one podcast network in America, sports podcast network, and that is all because of you clicking on content like this. We love our fans. Thank you very much. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down where Pete Golding in this Ole Miss program kind of goes from here as the transfer portal window kind of winds down. We'll talk about the offensive line and the narrative that is starting to form around the unit. Then we take a closer look at the linebacker room, which is not only deeper, but clearly more talented than last year's group. The defensive work that Ole Miss has done over the last year, pretty impressive. And we'll dive into exactly why. At first, we're going to start with Ole Miss landing Luke Ferrelli. Obviously, we're going to start with Ole Miss landing Luke Ferrelli. Now that it's finally official, we'll explain why Ferrelli profiles as a future star at the linebacker position for the Ole Miss Rebels and how his continued development could pay massive dividends moving forward. All of this and more coming up on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all of the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to our insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, your team every day. So as you just heard, Ole Miss getting a commitment from Luke Ferrelli. It's officially official for the Ole Miss Rebels, and he is going to be the starting middle linebacker for Ole Miss potentially as the season gets ahead. And if you told me 2 months ago that you're going to lose TJ Dottery, but you're going to upgrade him in years and talent by getting the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year for what he can do. He had a heck of a season for Justin Wilcox and the Cal Bears, and he's going to come over and kind of boss that defense. Listen, he had a game-saving interception. He's very good in pass coverage. He can go sideline to sideline. He's 6'3", 230 pounds. He's kind of what you want from a linebacker. When he was at Cal, this is the funny thing about Cal. Everybody forgets about him because Cal and Stanford are in the Atlantic Coast Conference, which I still say Cal and Stanford should not be allowed to charge for tuition when they're playing sports in the Atlantic Coast Conference. When you can see the Pacific Ocean from where you are, you probably can't say you're in the Atlantic Coast Conference, but still, I digress there. Luke Ferrelli, really good prospect. And if you told me, like I said, 2 months ago that you're going to lose TJ Dottery and replace that position with an upgrade, I would say you're crazy. But that's exactly what happened. Luke Ferrelli is the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he made flash play after flash play. Whenever he hits players out to the side, they go backwards. Ole Miss struggled against the run game last year. For whatever reason, everybody has theories of what went on. But part of that had to do with poor linebacker play. Whenever last season Ole Miss had TJ Dottery coming back, who's a good player. I'm not saying he's not a good player. But you also have Tah'j Chambers from like Southeast Missouri State, and you have Jaden Yates from Marshall, and you have Andrew Jones coming in from Grambling, and you had to mix and match and piece it together, and all of that coming to this level. It was far more difficult to be an elite defensive unit. So Pete Golding, we talked about the secondary all the time. They went out and got power four starters all along the secondary. They're going to play man coverage. Antonio Kite is going from the bar none number one cornerback to having to fight for the number two role in this defense moving forward next year. Linebackers kind of the same way. You had TJ Dottery that was by far the number one linebacker in that room. And then it was like, well, it could be Andrew Jones. It could be Tah'j Chambers. Maybe it's Jaden Yates. He has a cool nickname. And it turned out that Andrew Jones ended up winning that job after the first Georgia game. This football season, Ole Miss is putting together is like, okay, if TJ Dottery was on this team, where would he be? Now, TJ is an excellent communicator and he does a lot of things really well, but he also can be picked on at times. And Luke Ferrelli has a chance to come in with multiple years of eligibility and coaches weigh in, as long with being 6'3" and 230. So the size speed ratio is there. He can go sideline to sideline. So he's going to be the number one, and I think he would have been the number one this year, okay? When TJ Dottery was far and away the number one linebacker coming into the season, I don't think he would be number one over Luke Ferrelli, and they play the same position. Where Ole Miss has made real strides is with the other players that they brought in, and we will talk about that in the next segment as well. Also, Coach Corey Burton on the All Access program. If you're a part of the All Access program, this just another opportunity for you to help the site. We have Coach Corey Burton doing some film breakdowns of players and stuff like that. We have Mike Huseman talking about the transfer portal and coaching hires, and Dalen Flowers is posting videos from Oxford pretty much every day, honestly. And you will have the show prep from me, and the show that's going to be out the next day. You get like a 5-minute snippet of like how my mind works, even though that might be an increasingly scary proposition, but it is how my mind works and getting my thoughts together for the podcast earlier on. So we're going to start doing that. I'm not sure about the name, if we're going to be honest, but that'll be there for All Access subscribers. That's lockedonolemiss.supercast.com. The All Access tier is where those videos are. The $5 tier, the member tier, is where you go for like ad-free podcast and access to the Discord server and stuff like that. We're going to be able to coalesce that a little bit better now that we are outside of this playoff run that Ole Miss had. But Luke Ferrelli, really, really good football player, and he's been the worst kept secret in Ole Miss for about a week. People started reporting it was done about a week ago. I mean, it was done. What we were waiting on was for Clemson to realize that it's done, essentially, because they waited until the very end to put him in the portal to make Ole Miss wait to get him, because they could do that. They wanted to not help in any way they could. But we saw on Tuesday, Luke Ferrelli was in the student directory. We heard today that team meetings he attended, all of that. So it's officially done. Ole Miss has got their linebacker potentially for the 2026 season, and I'm excited to see what it could look like as well. When he was at Cal, he was second on the team with 87 tackles this season. He was honorable mention all ACC as a linebacker. Again, 87 tackles, 5 TFLs, a sack, and an interception in 2025 at Cal, and he had 3 double-digit tackle games, which that's big because we're going to talk about Tah'j Butler. We're going to talk about Keaton Thomas and these tackling machines that are being developed behind there in the linebacker positions, and how will they sit. That is interesting. We're also going to talk about Jacoby Hobson and the role that he could play, because I do think he has a role to play for Ole Miss next season. He's too good not to have that role. Anyway, this linebacker room is shaping up to be immensely talented for Ole Miss in 2026. There's really no way that you can get around that. You can really start to see the puzzle that is coming together. And we will talk about all of that next. You know, FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day. During the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see that pack loaded with multiple profit boost you can use to apply to the bets you like the most. Open your Profit Boost Pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. The boost give you more juice on the bets that you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boost makes your bets feel that way too. If you make your picks, then apply your Profit Boost to go after an even bigger payout while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel.com, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost Pack. Every NFL playoff game, every single day. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. Cost absolutely nothing, but it keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast in America. That's all because of you, fans watching content like this. Thank you very much for that. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and even more, all for just $5 a month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com or check the link out in the show notes below to learn more. Listen, we also have Dalen Flowers, we have Corey Burton, and we have Mike Huseman that do content for the all-access tier of the Everydayer Club that you can get for $15 per month or $150 per year. I also do show notes, building up. We're adding content to that tier pretty regularly. And now that the football season is over, we can start building up a routine of that. What we want to do is build the community. We have 2 Discord servers that you can join. We have all of those videos. We're going to do AMAs. We have a partnership, sort of a partnership with Ole Miss 365. So having the right people talking about the right things is not going to be a problem. And this is going to be the avenue that gets done. We're going to start expanding what we do. We already have Coach Burton putting out coaches film. He's going to do a breakdown of Luke Ferrelli. He's going to do a breakdown, honestly, of Trinidad Chambliss coming soon for the all access tier. So tune in for that. Anyway, so this linebacker group that Pete Golding has brought in is already more talented than the linebacker group that was there in 2025. Not particularly close, if we're going to be completely honest about it. I really like Keaton Thomas. I really like Tah'j Butler. And then you have the bell cow of Luke Ferrelli. And it is really interesting to see exactly how that goes. Again, we talk about Luke Ferrelli. He's a Cal transfer, height, speed, all of that stuff, sideline to sideline, honorable mention all ACC in the ACC conference this year. Transferred to Clemson, got a little bit weird, ended up coming to Ole Miss. Ole Miss ended up getting their guy. But Luke Ferrelli is a fantastic player, but he's not at all the final one. Ole Miss also got a commitment from Keaton Thomas in this transfer portal window cycle. He's 6'2", 210 pounds, kind of a twitchy linebacker. Think Chris Paul, think Andrew Jones, that type of player. He can do a lot of the same stuff. Even though he might be a little bit undersized, he is a tackling machine. And with Ole Miss's defensive line that they have, the linebackers can be a little bit lighter this year because of how talented they're going to be up front, with William Eccles doing the Walter Nolan stuff, Jaheim Otis, Mekhi Barrow, I think that's his name. Those guys coming in transfer, Cam Franklin. This defensive line is going to be very, very good. So I'm not necessarily worried about the weight. I'm worried about the playmaking in this linebacker group, and Keaton Thomas can absolutely do that. And finally, Ole Miss has Tah'j Butler coming in from Georgia Tech, linebacker, 6'2", 215. They say he's a tackling machine, and I need to see a little film. I need to break it down and stuff like that and see what's going on. But if he's a tackling machine, he will fit in nicely with what they're building on the second level of this defense. Listen, we talked about I don't know, for multiple years. And if you followed me whenever I've come on with the Portal podcast with the Florida Football Scout, he talks about it as well. The secret sauce that Georgia and Alabama has used for years is they make it to where double teams have to be applied to the two interior defensive linemen, and then the weapons that they have on the outside, they're being blocked by a tight end or a running back or being single blocked on the other side. When you look at that, if Ole Miss can make that happen, which I think they can, if William Eccles is going to be that dude, and we all know that Jaheim Otis is going to be somebody that demands a double team, and Barreau is somebody that's going to demand double teams. That means that Cam Franklin can work. And we saw in this defense, when you get that scenario with what happened with Jared Ivey, the jump that he took, I'm expecting a similar jump from Cam Franklin. Whoever's playing on the other end, whether it be Blake Purchase or Reynaud or Suntarine Perkins or whoever is over there, he's going to be going against a tight end or a running back or something like that. You can see where this defensive line has a chance to do some work. And when that happens, there's going to be bodies taking off. There's going to be less chaff, essentially, taken off for the linebackers to get through. So there's going to be more tackles for loss, more explosive plays. It's going to allow the defense to play man coverage a little bit more because they're not going to have as long to throw the ball. Listen, Pete's DNA has always been an explosive defense that creates explosive plays. The fact that the secondary was such a problem is something that wasn't going to happen. And Ole Miss went out and got Power 5 starters at each and every one of those positions. And it will be interesting to see exactly like where Antonio Kite kind of ends up. If you look at Antonio Kite's Instagram over the last couple of days, he's not happy about the people that left, anybody that left. He is an extremely apparently tribal guy, and this is his group of guys. And we told you in the fall camp period that him and Chris Graves were battling for number 8. Antonio Kite won number 8, won the number 1 corner position, and Chris Graves is now at Missouri with his buddy Austin Simmons. So we'll see what's going on there. All right. Before we get into the offensive line real quick, because in the next segment we're going to talk about the offensive line, I do want to say that players are kind of starting and to ramp up their off-season trials. And today was the first day that Deuce Knight threw the ball. And it was fine. It was 7-on-7, just throwing the ball around, all of that. It's not even about that. One interesting little factoid that I heard was that he was throwing with both hands. He was throwing ambidextrously. And that was pretty interesting to see what could happen. But Deuce Knight making his way, doing what he needs to do, and all the players coming in for the team meeting and all that. Football season getting closer and closer for Ole Miss every single day. Got about 250 days left to go. But spring will be interesting to me because of the newcomers that come in. Obviously, Ole Miss has done this 3 straight years. They pretty much have a system in place to build chemistry at this point in the transfer portal. Case in point, this year was way different than 2022. 2022, if that team was this year, they would have fallen completely apart. But they didn't. So when you look at the practice, at spring practice, what's going on, everybody is going to be focused on the running back room. Kewan Lacey's obviously the starter of what's going on, but running back 2 through running back 7 is going to be a dang knife fight going back and forth. Wide receiver wise, they're pretty set there as well with Caleb Cunningham and Darryl Gill and Jonte Cook and Deuce Alexander. And when they come back, Jace Matthews is going to be available. I think Jace is going to be in the slot eventually. Cameron Miller, who already is getting jugs work down at the Manning Center right now. They're getting ready to go for next year's class and all of that. So it's going to be pretty interesting. They seem to be a pretty fired up unit, as you can imagine, with all the momentum that they have. Just picture this for a second, okay? They finished an 11-1 regular season. Their coach left. So instead of chaos, which everybody expected to come, it didn't. Pete Golding did a miraculous job of holding everything together. The Mannings had a part in that as well. And Ole Miss ended up getting a recruiting class that, when mixed with their transfer portal haul right now, is the greatest recruiting class in 10 years at Ole Miss since Hugh Freeze put together that 2016 class. That's a feather in Pete Golding's cap. When you look at the playoff, getting 2 wins in 3 games, Ole Miss has 3 playoff games to their credit right now. That's no joke. Getting the home playoff game, momentum has been building for 2 months. And then in February, you're going to start the 4th quarter program essentially, and you're going to get ready for spring practice that is going to be the real deal. And we're going to find out shortly where the strength coach fits, how everything looks with the new tight end coach that is coming from Miami. Ole Miss is supposed to get a visit from an offensive tackle off of that Miami team, not the Markel Bell tackle, the other one. I think his name's Tinsley. I'm having a brain surgery moment there. So it's all coming up Millhouse right now for Pete Golding. And as practice is getting closer, we can all expect it to get even better. In our final segment, Pete Golding has done a terrific job of working the transfer portal. But why aren't they going hard after offensive tackles? We'll tell you why we think that's the case next. You know, tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with the local tax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and the work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the app. It's a huge time saver to get real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If TurboTax, that expert, didn't file for you the year before. Just file by February 28th, taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, so Ole Miss has done a phenomenal job of 95% of the positions associated with the transfer portal. They did a good job bringing back internal people on the deep offensive line, but the tackle position has people freaking out, okay? We mentioned Tinsley is slated to visit this weekend, I guess pending ice storm or something like that, but they're working on adding people, but they don't appear to be in a rush. I was listening to a podcast a little bit earlier today, and they were talking about how Ole Miss is desperate for offensive tackle, and it was like, well, they're not acting like it. They might be, they're not acting like it. And I started thinking, why is that the case? Why wouldn't they be desperate to go out and spend $4 million on an offensive tackle? Why aren't they like really in the thick of it with Jordan Seaton? I heard stuff like basic stuff back and forth where they were trying to talk about a visit a couple of days ago, but there's not really much there. And I started thinking maybe, just maybe, they're pretty happy with what they got. Now they're trying to add to it, of course, but they're in a pretty good spot right now. Now the transfer that they've added in is Carius Curne, who was the true freshman that started at LSU this season. He's from, I think, West Marion, Arkansas or something like that. He's from nearby. And that was kind of where it went dark, essentially, in communications on the transfer portal for Ole Miss. So you started looking at it. Ole Miss is returning Terez Davis. He started as a true freshman at Maryland. Anytime you start in the Power Four, as an offensive tackle as a freshman. That is worth paying attention to. He couldn't ever quite get healthy this season. I think he's going to be the left tackle for Ole Miss. Right now, I think Carius Curne is going to be the right tackle. But I don't know if that's exactly set in stone. A couple other names that you probably need to pay attention to. Cooper Johnson. Everybody's like, who? Well, it's not a name that gets thrown around very much because he transferred in right before last football season started. He was an All-American offensive lineman out of Western Iowa, one of those junior colleges in Iowa. He's a junior college player, but he was an All-American. I don't know where he sits right now. I don't know what that looks like. I know that he has a pretty high resume coming into Ole Miss, and everybody seems to be forgetting about that name. There's Connor Hawes, who over the course of the whole season, you heard about how he was doing extremely well, just like Devin Harper. He plays tackle. He has longer arms, I think, than Devin Harper. He could be a really good tackle. He was recruited by Sam Pittman to be an offensive lineman at Arkansas. He's a very respected talent evaluator on the offensive line position. He recruited Patrick Kutas famously. So those names, it's like, okay, they're too deep. And then you have Emmanuel Faulkner, who is coming in from New Albany. It's probably going to take a little bit, but it might not. I mean, he needs to get there and get rolling, but the plan is probably the same thing Connor Hawes had a year ago, to where you kind of redshirt and then you go. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. If Ole Miss gets Tinsley to campus and commits there, they're completely fine because of what I just said they had behind everybody. I mean, 4 stars and 5 stars just need to be developed. And I trust after this season, John Garrison to do just that, because he did a pretty fantastic job of what that looked like. Anyway, thanks for tuning into the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk transfer portal all week long. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you get all of the latest episodes. We're on all of the social channels, so check that out as well. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Locked On Ole Miss, ad-free, plus members-only Discord access is there for you and more. Head to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com and join the club if you want even more than that. Join the all-access thing, and there's stuff from Dalen Flowers, Corey Burton, Mike Huseman, and myself that is extra from all of this content as well. For those of you on video, we're going to send you the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you check out a second listen in college, Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. If anything breaks on the Trinidad Chambliss thing, we are going to go live as soon as we can at that point. So don't worry, you're not going to miss anything there. Hotty toddy, everybody, and it's getting close to the end of all the transfer portal roster building that's going to happen. Hotty toddy, everybody.